Hello, and welcome back to the Purna Yoga Shala. I have got a good one for you today, as we're going to be discussing one of the more convoluted and more heavily discussed topics in yoga. I've got the dragon here puffing away on his incense, got a big old Ganesha behind me, the fat baby elephant thing going on there with his four arms. We'll get to him later. But what I want to talk about today is how I would eventually get to him, and how a lot of the teachers historically have been able to guide or lead through very difficult topics, philosophical and heady topics. So whether it was a saint or a sage or any one of the texts teaching the way they did, it usually came down to analogy or parable being used. And whenever we could use these, we could take these topics that were much more difficult to understand and bring them in a more relatable context, a more relatable way to even the person that you're discussing this topic with in their individual perspective. So today we're going to be doing this with that understanding of the self. And this is something that's discussed so often, seeing the self, understanding the self, even coming to realize the self. What does this even mean? Well, even those that study what it means as much as possible, at the end of the day, they realize, and they come in their findings, is that you can't understand what it means. The soul itself, we're not able to wrap our minds around it. It's so far beyond our comprehension. But what we can do then is take this topic, take this term, and create an analogy, create a parable, so that we can bring it into relatable and more understandable terms. This will allow us to show to blur the lines of difference in those ancient texts, in the different traditions, and to show how we can agree on certain things, how we can bring these difficult topics that are shared in all the different texts, and we can show where the divine truths lie, where the principles that tie them together are. So today, to discuss the soul or the self, whatever we might want to call it, I'm going to be using the analogy of water. And water is something that's universally understood. We've all drank it, we have to. We've all interacted with it before, hopefully cleaning yourself. We've been rained on. Maybe you live by a body of water. There's many different interactions that we have with water. Maybe you live up north and you deal with snow and ice. And in these different interactions, we can come to the similar conclusions. So let's discuss this. First, we have ice. Let's talk about ice. When water takes this form of ice, any form that water does take, it's always very, very powerful. So when ice is formed, it has the ability to expand, and it's a destructive expansion. It's very, very powerful. And once it is formed, this ice has a chilling effect, obviously. It can cool a great area around it. And this ice started off as just water, just manipulated and changed because of the setting, the surrounding, the sensory influence, if you will. And that water's sensory influence told it that it was cold enough to become ice. Boom, ice is made. So the other end of the spectrum, that water became hot enough that it would become steam. And in that steam, it takes a vaporous form. Now, when water takes that vaporous form, it's actually one of the most damaging types of heat that you can interact with is steam. Now we get to waves. And this is well known as maybe water's most powerful interaction with all of nature. When it crashes in its waves on coastlines, it can literally form out massive continents and rock forms. It can pulverize these rocks down into sandy granules. It's incredible. And we don't even think about water in its natural sense, because when we do interact with these three different forms that it takes, it is so incredibly strong. But when water is in its true nature, it's calm, it's unagitated, it's pure. So today, the comparison or the relatability that we'll take between water and the soul is that the soul, it creates the label, the identity around itself based on the experience, based on the societal influence and those sensory influences that it takes on. Once it begins to create this personality, this persona, it carries it on, and every interaction adds another layer. Every interaction adds another bit of depth to that persona, to that identity. Similarly, when water takes a form, every bit of heat or additional cold influences that water, so that it either stays ice, hardens as ice, or begins to melt away. Or maybe it condenses from steam down into water. Maybe the waves calm and the water becomes glassy smooth. But we don't ever think of these things. We don't ever think of the water in its natural sense. We don't ever contemplate it when we see it in these other forms, but maybe we should. Maybe when we see others in their natural forms, in their natural path, their dharma, they're living their passions, maybe we should see them as they truly are. A soul with many different expressions based on their experience, their interactions, their societal influence, and they're creating this beautiful, beautiful persona around them. So I hope that kind of creates more of a clarity to this topic of the soul and the self. That we'll have to stop moving. We'll have to stop being rigid and condensed in our form and stubborn in our ways. We'll have to stop being so turbulent and so ready to change and alter things and maneuver around obstacles instead of pushing through them and overcoming them. Maybe we're crashing constantly against the struggles and rather than just going with the flow. So if we could try, maybe we could take on what Bruce Lee said once. Be water, my friend. I hope that helps you to breathe your way through the day, go with the flow of the day, go with the pulse of nature, and see everyone as they truly are, a soul, a beautiful, beautiful soul in and of themselves, just like you. Remove the labels, remove the identity, and see that we are truly all one. Thank you so much for joining me here in the Purna Yoga Shala. This is not your average yoga shala. I'm not your average yogi. My name is Domenic Nappa. Thank you very much for joining me once again. Have a beautiful day. Peace.